Welcome to BizTech Forward, your go-to podcast for cutting-edge insights at the intersection of business and technology. Let's move forward together.
Welcome to a special bonus episode of BizTech Forward. Today we're doing something different. Throughout Season 2, I asked each guest for their unpopular opinions, and they delivered. These are the takes that made us pause and challenge conventional wisdom. So let's have a look. First, we had Mike Peterson, advisory CTO, mentor, and coach. He got real about the AI hype cycle.
I think again, I'll go back to trying to be sensible, trying to be level-headed, and not get caught up in all the hype and the BS. You know, you want to put yourself and position yourself. I've seen a billion people get left behind by not looking in where change is going. I've saw a lot of people fail because they overcommitted to change. And so you have to know what that balance is to upskilling. Where do you upskill? How do you get there? So I think the all-in rush, ignore things because this is the new end-all, be-all, and AI is that today. And it's certainly going to be in a lot of places. But you got to do it with, measured steps and logical steps. It's not there's no miracle here in learning how to do these things. And I think people who talk about how easy it is and what you can do with it, and that's coupled with my my whole pet peeve about everybody coming in to sound smart after they've gone on to ChatGPT or something and got a bunch of information and then spout like they know what they're talking about. And you got to be aware of that, and you've got to be able to learn how to deal with that, and then present a case or a story that talks about here's what we really have to do. Sometimes in the early hype cycle, it's hard to do because people are so passionate about that change. But I think you're already seeing disillusionment in the money that people have spent.
Next, we had Maryna Melnik, Head of Learning and Development at DataArt, on what L&D actually is.
There is this painful opinion, and I have an unpopular one against this one, is that L&D is not just about creating self-paced courses and conducting traditional instructor-led training sessions. We're so much more than that. L&D is about helping business achieve its goals, and this help can take different shapes. For example, it's about launching company-wide awareness campaigns to shift mindsets and behaviors. For instance, that's what we've been doing with clouds when we arrange lots of activities, not typical learning activities, to encourage our colleagues to also develop in this area, to get certified and so on. So that's one example. Another example, it's about developing leaders, but in unconventional ways. It's not just through arranging workshops or training. It's about training, and it's about coaching and mentoring leaders, for instance. It's about collaboratively creating skill matrices and mapping out professional journeys that align both with the wishes of our colleagues, individual colleagues, and the company needs. It is about curating learning ecosystems where colleagues can find the right resources at the right time. It can be a webinar, it can be a post in our internal corporate social network. It can be indeed a self-paced course or a hands-on learning project that we have, a book, anything. And sometimes it's also talking about what L&D is and is not, right? It's also about saying no to training when we realize that the problem is not the lack of skills or knowledge, but it's deeper and it's something else. For instance, it's about broken communication, not the absence of communication, or poor business processes and so on. So we're not just training team. We're strategic partners, and we're here not to teach. We're here to help the company grow, develop, and achieve its goals.
Marcos Mauro, EVP LATAM at DataArt, tackled a major misconception about Latin America.
Sometimes I find myself not arguing, but having, discussions with colleagues and people from the industry. Probably one huge misconception is that Latin America is just a place for outsourcing tech talent, and getting developers by the kilo. Outsourcing is indeed part of the story, and definitely is what took us to this place, right? So there's a technography ladder that we have to climb, but we're not longer at only serving people for other regions' projects, right? It's part of the story, and we do it. But the real narrative is about homegrown innovation. The world needs to wake up to the fact that some of the most exciting developments in AI, fintech, and digital transformation are happening actually in the region, Latin America. So yeah.
Next, we had Julia Zavileyskaya, Chief People Officer at DataArt, with a bombshell about AI in recruitment.
I don't believe in AI in recruitment because I love AI. I love it like our assistant, but I don't rely on it to make decision instead of us. I don't want to trust AI to match candidates to positions. I don't rely on AI analyzing technical interviews of candidates and providing feedback and so forth. I still believe that people do it much better. With all my love to AI, I don't trust AI to make decisions on behalf of us.
Oh, wow, that's a great note to end on and to think about it. I didn't even know that AI was used to make decisions and analyze technical interviews. Wow, it's a thing?
Sometimes, yes. And I heard these cases in the market. Luckily, we have never done it ourselves. We have never used AI in this regard in our recruitment. Maybe because I don't believe in that. And luckily, our colleagues in recruitment sometimes quite skeptical in this area as well.
Followed by Doron Fagelson, Senior VP of Media and Entertainment at DataArt, on trust in the world of art.
I would say that my view on collectors' trust in institutions is that in general that trust has been a bit in decline, and I think that what's happening is I think that collectors' trust is starting really to move away from being centralized in institutions and among art professionals, and more to individuals and to art communities that have been formed around the internet and social networking platforms. So I think that it's kind of a trend towards a distributed trust model versus a centralized trust model, which I think is really quite fascinating. And I think this is definitely affecting the business models of major art market players that have really in the past traditionally relied very much on really sort of owning that collector trust, and how that collector trust has really empowered their brands and driven their success.
Greg Abbott, Head of Travel and Technology and DataArt, with a realist take on industry standards.
Paul will kill me for saying this, but it's like the idea of that there will be standards in our industry without regulation. So I don't believe that we'll ever have a standard unified way of exchanging data. I wish there were, but I'm a little pessimistic, and there are others that have been advocating for this for years and there are groups that we participate in that are advocating standards, but I see that the standards are produced, but companies have the option to follow them or not. And so often even though the standards are there, they won't follow the standards. And so that makes, it more difficult to create a unified environment of exchanging data. And that it just makes extra work for everybody because there's no agreement on those standards. So I don't believe standards will make it, but I hope to be proven wrong, if that makes sense.
Oh, would you say that this is generally an unpopular opinion? Because my best question that I was about to ask was, hey, Greg, do you have any unpopular opinions on the topic?
Yeah, I think it might be an unpopular opinion, or it might be just a realist's opinion. I don't know, but that's the one thing I think that it has to be a government authority that comes in and regulates and forces businesses to do something. I wish businesses would adopt on their own, but I think it has to be a regulatory thing. And I'm not like saying, hey, we should regulate this industry, but I believe that when I've seen standards at play, it's because companies are forced to do something because of a particular rule or something that an administration comes in and forces upon them. So because travel is unregulated, I think standards will never really persist.
Then we had Olesya Khokhoulia, VP of Global Enterprise Accounts at DataArt, pushing back on market complaints.
I think that everyone keeps saying market is tough, that's why we can't do anything. For me, it just brings opportunity. I don't think that market is tough. Market always was tough. And believe me, even 20 years ago when I started my career, we always thought that market is tough, competition is very high. So, and looking at what happened like 20 years back and now, it's uncomparable things in terms of complexity, competition, and everything, right? So industry is growing, expectations higher and higher. So I don't say that market is tough. I never support such message. I always saying, yes, everyone, you have to respect the competition. You have to be comfortable in this competitive environment. That's for sure. I can support that. But I can't say that market is tough and we can't do anything. It brings lots of opportunities. You have to just be brave, innovative, understand what you're really doing, conservative in a good way, as I said, and professional. And then you will see just opportunities, not, some complexity which you can't overcome.
And finally, Alexey Utkin, head of Data and Analytics Lab at DataArt, with a prediction about AI's future.
I think that before we see the next cycle where AI really works for data, for data engineering, for operations, really supports this data quality, governance, all the data-driven, data analytical use cases, I think before we get there, we will have at least another phase or long phase of disillusionment in terms of struggles with the new issues and challenges which are brought to the data world by AI itself. So things like it's similar to like, I don't know if you heard ChatGPT and other big large language models, they now struggle a little bit with training because they're now exposed to a lot of data which is generated by the models, right, in the last 2-3 years, or content on the internet, etc., largely produced with the help of AI. And this new content that kind of interferes with model training, etc., etc. So it kind of is a challenge on its own. So I think in this regard, the risks and problems associated with, I don't know, there is a piece of AI code, AI-generated code, which works here, and it gives us these anomalies, these errors sometimes, etc. We will see more and more of that. So I think with all this great potential, the entropy, the chaos will also be growing until we make the better use of AI to, again, validate and deal with all these errors, anomalies, etc., etc. So that's kind of my prediction, is it will get a little bit even harder before it gets better in terms of AI adoption for data.
So, 8 unpopular opinions from people with real experience who are not afraid to say what they think. Which one surprised you most? Tell us at biztechforward@dataart.com. Thank you for listening, and if you missed the full episode, go back and check it out. That's it from us. See you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to BizTech Forward. If you enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe and share to help us reach more listeners. Thank you for being part of the conversation. See you next time.